Welcome to Emotional Sobriety. We've got Joe C. here with us today, patching in from Toronto area, right?
Yes, the the widely recognized Greater Toronto area from Picton, Ontario, actually, is where I am.
Is that kind of like I say I'm from LA just because it's when I'm really from Redondo Beach and you just don't want to confuse people, right? With
Yeah,
all the little
exactly. People know where the airport is,
exactly. Yeah.
and it's in Toronto.
And Tom's with us as well. How's it going today, Tom?
I'm from the greater Ashland City, Tennessee area. Yeah, we had some bad storms last night. We had some tornadoes come through here, but we didn't get touched by them. But some people around here, we lost some people to tornadoes in this area last night.
My sister lives in Tennessee, as you know, and she
Yeah,
was not affected by it, but it's scary, man. Like now I've got a couple people I care about in that area who like I need to
yeah,
worry about Wizard of Oz things happening to them and not the
I
fun
know.
part of Wizard of Oz.
Not the part where your house just gets moved over to Oz. Yeah.
Well, I'm
So it
glad
was
you're
it was it
okay.
was pretty it was scary, but it was we're safe and sound.
Good. Well, Joe had an idea for a topic for today, and I'm super stoked to get going on it. It has to do with humility and the willingness to be wrong, right? How would you like to define it, Joe?
It really is, for me, for my emotional sobriety. I'm at a competent level of emotional sobriety when I'm not embarrassed to be wrong. I'm going to be wrong a lot. And that's just sort of accepting the way things are. I was in a conversation and I remember being embarrassed to be wrong and said, why would you be embarrassed? And that's a really good point. There's a book called Being Wrong, which I would recommend
Mm.
anybody read, because the point is made. What does it feel like to be wrong? What would you say?
Well, it just reminds me of my smallness. It reminds me of my insignificance in the universe, I suppose, because being right, quote unquote, my kind of like lived experience with it is you're just trying to get you're trying to grasp um, a complex issue. I mean, it doesn't even need to be complex. You're just trying to kind of like use language and you're trying to use your mind to kind of like uh, to get a leg up on something external to yourself. And for me, my own kind of ego gets bound up in like, would really like to have mastery, over any topic really, if I'm being honest, that I am discussing with anybody. But I am not a master of
Well,
many,
but
if
but
not all
that that
topics.
but that's how you become a master of anything. First of all, master does not mean perfect, but master to be master. I don't think there's anybody who has mastery over anything who probably doesn't have a good grip on this idea of it's okay to be wrong, because that's how we learn. I mean, when my response to that is, I had two categories, Joe. I thought, if I at times I can remember when I think when I'm wrong, and I realize I've really maybe dug in and about something I thought I was right about, and someone is, because of that, someone is hurt by that. I have one response, which is, I think, appropriate guilt. It's like, and I think, and again, appropriate guilt. I always say appropriate guilt is like those rumble strips on the side of the highway where
Yeah.
when you're getting off, it wakes you up and gets you back on the road again. And so that's what conscience is. But I'm proud to say that the other part about that, just being wrong, if we're discussing things, if we have a discussion about something here and I have a position on it, and by the end of the discussion or in the middle of the discussion, one of you guys says something that makes me realize, oh, your thinking on this is better than mine. I'd like to adopt yours. I actually feel good about it, because I don't think, in those cases, I don't think of wrong as a punctuation. It's just a part of the process. It's like, I need to make an adjustment. Because I mean, my God, I can think back in my life and think, back at so and so time, I believed this,
Yeah.
and it's like, at this point, I don't. Or in terms of humility, a lot of times I look back in my life, and I always say you could be a fundamentalist anything. I used to have a friend I called a fundamentalist hippie,
Huh.
And you could, but there were times in my younger life where I believed things, and I just believed them to be absolute. I was, this is the truth. This is the way the universe works. This is what, da, 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 and with aging, comes the one, a particular brand of humility, which is, there's a lot of shit, most shit I don't know, and most shit I don't control. And it's like, to me,
Well,
I put in, I put in embracing fear. The ever increasing list of those two things I don't control and things I don't know, basically is what makes up my wisdom.
it was kind of a trick question. For me, what I feel like when I'm wrong is I
Mm-hmm.
feel right. What both of you described is what the
Ah,
feeling of knowing I'm wrong is. Because
oh,
often
oh,
when
oh,
I'm wrong, I feel right. I'm driving faster in the wrong direction to get there quicker and getting
right.
further and further away
Oh,
from my
amen to
destination.
that. Yes, yes. Good trick question. No,
Yeah,
you're right. We both jumped ahead
yeah,
to what does it
exactly.
feel,
And
what
it's
does it feel
that,
like to have awareness? Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly. And so often when I'm wrong, I'm unaware of being wrong.
Mhm.
And I think it's not only as individuals, even organizations, when they're afraid to try something new, because what if it's not the right choice?
Mhm.
Whatever happened to trial and correction,
Mhm. Mhm.
pioneering,
Mhm.
experimenting, keep trying different things until we find something optimal, until that
Mhm.
stops working and try something else again. And a lot of organizations have a tend away for there's a change resistance because they don't want to be wrong.
What's his name? Robert Keegan, the psychologist, does a lot of things, but industrial psychology in one way, and he has a book called Immunity to Change. And it's like, when you read what he means by immunity to change, it's like it's that really deep down resistance we have to change. And he talks about it both in as individuals and as organizations. He works with organizations to get that. But of course, what you have to do to change the organization is change the individuals. Because that comes with being human, I think, or at least Western humans are this way.
Yeah,
Well,
but
oh,
go ahead.
go right ahead, Joe. You go first.
I was just going to say, like, what can we do to support each other in our wrongness? Like I don't want to be wrong because I'm afraid of what you'll think of me.
Right.
I know I'm wrong
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
some of the time, right?
Right.
But is it my perception, or do we place these expectations of uh, you know hitting the ball 9 out of 10 times instead of 3 out of
Right.
10 times, which makes you a Hall of Famer?
Right. Right.
Well, I think I've always had kind of a fantasy of I would love to be like the clear, intelligent voice in the room that others gravitate towards. Thinking of myself in the third person, I guess. And so the stakes for being wrong, quote unquote, in a context like that are kind of high, right? Because if people think you're full of shit, then you're not going to be that gravitational force in the room.
Well, except for one of the things that I recognize in my life is that one of the ways you can identify wisdom is people who are wise are the most comfortable people in the world with that sentence, I don't know.
Yeah,
And I think we could add to that, I might be wrong about that. I mean, I think that's it. And see, and I think it has to do with emotional sobriety, because, and this is one of the things we can support each other with specifically, but we can also just support the community, our community, that way by just consciously changing this policy. Really, is to say it's an okay thing to do. As a matter of fact, it's a good thing to be. We're all going to be wrong. So if you're not recognizing that you're wrong some of the time, you're obviously not seeing. You're missing some things.
Well, you know,
It's even a positive thing that we can recognize. When you know, give an example of when you were wrong about something that when you learned you were wrong, you were able to make a positive correction.
well, you're gonna, wrinkle up your nose at this, Tom, but I think you're quite wise. You're an example of somebody who I think listens m more than you bloviate, and I can't help but think of politics and my discourse of politics with people
Mm,
especially over the past few years in
mm.
the context of wrongness and rightness, and I think like what happens sometimes on Facebook is I'll get these little pings of like memories from 5 years ago. This is some shit that you said. And and then I'll
Oh,
see,
I hate those.
oh
God,
yeah,
I
yeah.
hate those.
No, but they're instructive because I'll see this thing that I bloviated back then, and most of the time I have kind of evolved a bit. I wouldn't say that, 10 out of 10 times, I have a completely contrary opinion, but it just there is like a progression, I guess, of like the way that I think and the way that I
Yeah.
communicate. And yeah, I mean, especially lately, I mean, these days there's never not something that inflames people's passions,
Right.
and so making it a conversation rather than just talking at people about your point of view, I think is a way that I'm learning little by little to circumvent kind of the putting the onus of rightness or wrongness on any one position
Well,
and just making,
also
yeah.
that makes me think too. Also, taking wrongness and rightness out of an all or none category. You know, we either or so much stuff. You know, it's like
Yeah.
the idea. I mean, this is kind of a silly example, but I was telling a client of mine was afraid she was afraid she was going to get fired from her job, and she was feeling embarrassed by it. I just I said I shared that I said I actually in my days when I was employed by other people, I lost count of how many times I was fired, and she kind of was shocked by that, but what I was saying to her was I and I hadn't thought about it in this category, but the truth is, in most, except for maybe one example, exception, the reasons I was fired, or also in other cases, the reasons I quit a job abruptly, were good reasons. They were based on my value system. I was bucking the
Right.
system, and I got fired. I don't. There's not one of those that I don't stand by today. However, how I handled it was so off. I was so wrong. It's like, I was such a egotist with that stuff, and I was just shoving my beliefs down somebody's throat, and I was insisting that they buy it, hook, line, and sinker, or I'm done. It's like I was wrong in so many ways, but in the midst of all of that stuff, then when we come down to some of the basics, I go like, no, I still have the same basic belief system, you know.
Yeah.
But boy, could I have done that better.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the baked in hope of our capacity to or well, the extent to which we can allow ourselves to be wrong and still move forward is that we can change, like the inability to like the unwillingness to allow ourselves to be wrong, right? Is
Yeah.
is a way is another way of saying that we're completely fixed in our position and we're completed projects, right? And
Mhm,
there's no direction left for us to
mhm,
go.
mhm,
And God, like especially in the context of what you just said, Tom, about you know, fuck ups of the past and just kind of wishing
mhm.
you had a redo. Like
Yeah.
I'm in a very fresh breakup right now, but my mind has been going lately to ages ago breakup, like 10 years ago
Mhm,
or more,
mhm, mhm,
that I could not have handled worse. I mean, maybe there's a
mhm,
multiverse where I handle it worse, but like I was at the like my most childish and immature and just kind of like and anyway, I think about my behaviors during that time and just how outrageous it all was. And boy, am I glad that I've made some strides away from that because that was just ridiculous. I don't even recognize that guy anymore.
Well, but the upside is it gives you something to do when you get to steps 8 and 9. Yeah,
That's
a
what
lot of
everyone.
material to sort through, It's like,
You're right
oh
about
yeah,
that.
yeah. My marriage has been a good teacher to this too, because it's one of those places where I probably wasn't this way earlier on in our relationship, but it's not I would say it's not unusual. I wouldn't say it's every time, but it's not unusual that Dee Dee and I will have a conversation or have a problem with something in disagreement, and we because we now communicate in a way that doesn't blow everything up and send everything south. We just have a communication about it, conversation about it. And I may walk away from those conversations, and during the course of the next few, whether it be minutes, hours, or days, I may come back to Dee Dee and just say, I've been thinking about what you said, and I really think you're right about so and so. It's not even so much about me being wrong as much as just acknowledging that the other person had a point that I was arguing against. In the old days, talk about the obnoxious days. In the old days, because I would just dig in and because because my self-esteem was connected to my being right. That's one of the, we get to choose our sources of self-esteem. And the idea of being right all the time doesn't need to be one of those sources. The source of self-esteem I want is that I'm open to learning. So in doing that, I want to see the glitches. I want to find the mistakes that I'm making so that I can correct and grow.
Yeah, I just said I want to find that childlikeness too, that, just everything is the scientific method when you're a child. Try this and then try that, trying to
Right.
ride a bike, being
Right.
on a treasure hunt or hunting for Easter eggs, right? You don't give up when it's not in the first place you look. You keep going, and the tension and the excitement mounts. It doesn't.
How is that such a great example? Because you
don't
also
feel defeated.
the Easter night, you don't lay in bed thinking, oh man, I really could have done better looking for eggs. And my whole model was off. Before next year, I need to really work on this. It's like, no, you just got what you got.
I'm in a sort of phase of life where elder care is part of what I'm doing. My aging father and his wife, I'm staying with them just to help out where I can. And I held some preconceptions about my dad, about him being competent at things I'm not competent about, building things, fixing things, and in my sort of simple brain, he was good at that. I'm not. But living with him, I get to watch him. He just keeps trying till he solves it. He goes, well, there, I found another way that doesn't work. So eliminate that. What's the next one? And he doesn't get frustrated as it mounts. He gets more curious and more almost. There's a buildup of positive energy as he's getting closer and closer.
He becomes invested in it. He's invested.
Yes.
He really, it's a project he wants to see through.
Yeah. There's I don't know if it's a folk tale or true, but Thomas Edison, it took him 14,000 experiments to create the incandescent light bulb. And he was interviewed by a young reporter 10,000 experiments in, and asked the question, what is it like to know you failed 10,000 times at the same experiment? And he said, young man, you're young and you don't quite understand the way of life yet, but I have not. I've successfully, unequivocally found 10,000 ways that will never work. We're getting closer.
That's beautiful.
That's so inspiring to me. In my family, and it's mostly on the women's side. So my mom and my sister, they really like those jigsaw puzzles. The more pieces, the better. And they'll just sit there for over a period of days and put these exquisite, puzzles together. The act of doing that, of like, you've got these teensy little pieces and you're just trying one and you're trying to, and the tenacity of just following that through to completion. I never had the patience for that. But like, I that's a metaphor. I don't know. I'll kind of bring sometimes to all of life's long-term pursuits, where something needs to be kind of constructed through trial and error over a long period of time. And I really have, I've come around to believing that it's really the tenacity, it's the follow through, rather than just some like innate God-given talent, that like brings people to these amazing plateaus. It's just they sit there and they sift like Thomas Edison did, right? And they just kind of, they X opt out option after option after option until they finally get to the one that's closest to the idea they had in their mind, right?
What are our sources of self-esteem? It's like what and other and our value system that can be just translated into what's more important, what's the most important. It's like, and so if I'm using an example, if my way of thinking is, if learning is most important, if that's what makes me feel good about myself, if that's what raises my self-esteem and gives me more confidence, then I can do the Thomas Edison way, and I can fail and fuck up things numerous times, as long as feel like I'm in a process of learning. And that has to do
Yeah.
with my attitude. That doesn't mean that, that between 8,000 and 9,000, he didn't necessarily feel great about what was going on, but it's like, the truth is, he stuck it out because sorting through what doesn't work to get to what does work is the way to do it.
Self-esteem and being right and wrong. It also occurs to me, it reminds me of something a therapist said to me a while ago. And I still struggle with it sometimes. It seems so counterintuitive, but the whole kind of you are enough piece. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when she said, uh, you right now, everything that you're kind of bringing to the table, that's that should be enough. That's plenty to work with. You know what I mean? Like, you can lead with that foot. And it just really fucked with me because I was, of course I'm not enough. Look at XYZ, all these qualities that I'm completely lacking. That look at the five people next to me. You know what I mean? They have in spades, and I'm just, lesser than. Do you guys ever tell that to people that they're enough? And do they greet you with the same kind of like confoundedness that I
Yeah.
must have, yeah?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. It's you bring in one of the reasons that happens is because we are brought up to measure ourselves in everything, but measure ourselves in comparison to everybody else and everything else. What you went to immediately was, look at this guy and look at that guy and this guy. Man, when I do that, and I do that, it's like I can do that. I'm reading a new book by Alan Lightman, who's like this physicist, novelist, pianist. He's everything. It's like I mean, and he's one of those guys in my life that I love reading his books. And every now and then, if I start or if I start thinking, what have I done compared to this guy? It's like, that's a horrible thing for me to do to myself, because I'm just measuring accomplishments. And it's in that, and when your therapist said you're enough, she's not talking about accomplishments. She's really talking about your being, your soul.
I mean, she seemed to like me. I don't know why, but at the time I was such a mess. But
If we didn't like people who hated themselves, I mean, we would not be talking to a lot of people. But I mean, the idea is, you've done that, where you're in a position where you can see the good in somebody when they can't see it in themselves.
yeah, I mean, I try to take notice of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, yeah. I mean, I think I do give people I do make allowances for all the struggles that different people have that I have difficulty making for myself.
Well, you're somebody, I think it's fair to say, because I'm doing this using the clinical principle of it takes one to know one, but the whole idea of what I call the dangerous double standard. You just apply you apply a different standard to yourself than you do to anybody else. I mean, that's, if you're saying these mean things to yourself, you say, okay, if a friend of yours was going through the exact same thing, is that what you would say to your friend? And the answer is almost always, and maybe always, no. I wouldn't say that to another person. We say we listen to that should monster in our head, and we save that particular abuse for ourselves. That's not the most valuable piece of information or assessment going on in our head. You learn from a therapist who says you're enough. Then you get curious, like what Joe's saying. It's so when you're confounded, and this we don't do this enough. If somebody says something that we don't get, rather than say, I don't get it, just get it. Say, help me understand that. How do you explain it? You're asking it of us, but it's like, I mean, you could, if we go back, you could even ask it of the therapist to explain that to me, because this makes no sense to me.
I wonder, I wish we were in mixed company for this question, but is it part of male programming? Is there something about vulnerability and being
Hmm.
wrong and being seen as wrong that is harder the way we've been programmed in our maleness uh, than it would be in sort of, and I'm talking very cliches, this
Yeah.
sort of binary male female experience, but there is a vulnerability to not knowing, to not having the answers, to trying something and falling on my ass.
Hmm.
And I wonder how much of that is programming, how much of that is self-image,
Well,
how
in my
far back
experience,
it
yeah,
goes.
and yeah, we'll need to ask some women that question to find out their perspective. But it makes sense to me. It sounds, it it reminds me of what I call the white hat addiction that I see. And anything we say is
Mm-hmm.
is gender specific. There's lots of what do you call them? Examples where it's not true, but but the white hat addiction, I see so many of us males experience, which is it's just like incredibly difficult, feels impossible to be seen by the outside world as anything but the good guy, you
Yeah.
know. And this, because when I look back at my long ago history of drinking and drugging and stuff, it's like one of the most amazing things that I can think of is I can look at the things that I did, how I treated people, the choices I made, and be absolutely, if I'm telling the story, appropriately embarrassed by that. Go, but what I remember about myself at the time was I always thought I was the good guy.
Yeah.
Never saw myself as, the hat wasn't even dingy. It was always white. I was always the hero. I was the guy that was coming in. And it's like, that's just not accurate. I mean, so part of what we're talking about is that essence of humility that's basically realizing just we're human. And we're not, I say that to men a lot of times. It's like, we're not always going to be the good guy, and I don't mean we have to all or none it, but it's like sometimes the best thing, the good guy can do is step up and own what we've done wrong. Say, I was wrong. I made a mistake. I'm so sorry I'm sincerely so sorry that I treated you that way.
This may have been you who said this recently, Tom, or it could have been at a different meeting, but this idea that loving yourself and being
Hmm.
honest with yourself, the latter is more important, an attitude of honesty towards our own behaviors,
Yeah.
as much as we can manage that, in an objective sense,
Well,
which doesn't exclude self-love, but it's kind of like it's something, it's a foothold that it can be a lot more constructive
right.
in the long
Well,
term.
I don't know if I've said that, but what I say is my measure at the end of the day is not self-love, it's self-respect. It's how, and I do believe one leads to the other. I mean, I think over time, if you're living a life of self-respect, then that you're going to find that it's possible to love yourself. But what we're really talking about, and this is to me for me the key to emotional sobriety is it's integrity. It's like, if I feel, even if I'm feeling horrible at the end of the day, if I feel like I did the best job I could do to be the best version of myself, or even if I have recognized ways that I need to improve upon that, and I know that I am sincerely determined to do better tomorrow, you know, I can feel good about myself. Not perfect, not the best guy in the world, but I can feel solid. And and I think that's what the measure, at the end of the day, but also at the end of our lives. How do we feel about the person we were?
And that's the essence of emotional sobriety for me, is to be enough under any circumstances. Just
Yes.
to, and again, I'm channeling the wisdom of a loved one. Just show up, Joe. That's your job. Just show up, right? Don't have to have all the answers. Don't have to solve all the problems. Just show up, contribute, be curious, be thoughtful, and try to, figure it out. It's not like life is this puzzle that there's a right answer to, and I've got to
Right.
find it.
Right.
Well, I'll give you a sticky thicket of situation that I got into recently, and you can tell me ways that the emotional sobriety can be expanded, I suppose. Tell me tell me how I'm fucking up. Okay, so there's a gal that I know through a friends group. She's very fun and pretty, and I've only seen her a couple times, but when I fell off the cliff and I was in my period of, just not feeling too great. And one of the members of this friends group came to me in the hospital and we hung out and stuff. And anyway, I let it slip that I thought she was pretty and, do you think she'd go out with me sometime? And so anyway, he, being the very nice guy that he is, passed that information along and, just played the this guy's in the hospital card, could you make a wish, get in touch with him. And so, but anyway, she is a Zionist, and and then all this stuff popped off with October 7th and Gaza and whatnot. And I am very I would describe myself as very pro-human. I'm very stalwart against any form of bigotry or anti-Semitism, and also just very just mournful for the loss of life, both in Israel on October 7th, but then subsequently, very much so in the bombing of Gaza, and just the tremendous loss of life.
Sure.
And anyway, so she got in touch with me. We started texting each other, and I had the idea that well, let me make this the one relationship I have in my life where I don't and we don't venture into politics right out the gate, or maybe let's just not talk about it because I would really like to uh, start a conversation with this person independent of that and just get to know her, and let's just see if we can keep that on a separate track. And then, but see, I should have been known better that like modern dating now, the first thing that any prospective date will do is do a deep dive on all the things you've ever posted on social media and kind of put a procedural, like do kind of like an analysis, like a hotspots analysis of everything you've ever said. And anyway, so she was on my social media for like 5 to 10 minutes, and
It wouldn't take
oh
that long on you on yours. Yeah.
no, try 30 seconds. But she was just like, oh no, this guy's he's no good. So she started texting me basically like, no, you're wrong. This is like here's my opinion. And she, and it actually became kind of like an audition, or she's like asking, kind of requiring that I audition to see her, to have more contact with her. And she was sending me videos and different kind of like homework to do and whatnot. And so anyway, things just kind of fizzled out, you know what I mean? Like as soon as I got the sense that like there was like a threshold that I needed to pass of agreement, and then we would only continue with the coupling, after I'd reached that threshold. I didn't think I had it in me. But I guess what I'll say is like the attitude I tried to approach it with both before we started this conversation and kind of quasi debate that lasted a couple days over text and stuff. Uh, is I don't need her to meet me where I am. And I actually have a tremendous amount of compassion and like fond feeling for her, even in her different political perspective, because she has family and friends over there in Israel, and these subjects are very like close to her heart and very close to kind of like enmeshed with her family and kind of like the way that she's been raised and kind of like she's lived her whole life. And I think a lot of her as a human being, even if I really disagree with her on some of like some of her points. And ultimately what all of this ended the sum of all this was that we just stopped talking to each other. And I think we're still friends on social media, but like at this point in
Mhm.
time, clearly we're not going to be able to like build a sturdy bridge or anything. But I thought I would give it a shot. I wanted to give it my best shot at just not trying to be right or wrong, not erasing myself either, right? But just kind of
Mhm.
um, make trying to communicate, I suppose. I don't know. Does that intersect at all with what we're talking about today?
It sounds like you did good, and I mean, and you brought up something that's really important is when you talk about who she is and who where her people are and family and friends and stuff. One of the things we need to do when we're in even in polar opposite places with people politically is understand we don't know what it's like to be that person. We haven't grown up in that person's shoes. We have, it's like everybody makes sense at some level. It just and I think that's being compassionate to you and to her at the same time. It reminds me a lot of Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. If you haven't read that book, you should read that book or if you haven't read it, what I always say about it, nonviolent communication with Marshall Rosenberg. If I haven't read that book recently, I need to read it because uh, it is so. I don't know. You're familiar with it, right, Joe?
Oh yeah,
It's
for
it's
sure.
like I mean it's so simple,
Yeah.
but it's like it's deep. It's like when I listen to that and I think about that and I think about the things that this man has actually accomplished and done. It's like he just goes beyond what I aspire to be a better person in that way, and along our lines of what we're doing here, and not compare myself and beat myself up that I'm not Marshall Rosenberg, but it's like the idea that I can learn a lot from him. But this man he can have a conversation with anybody, and it's going to work out. It's going to work out to the better. Yeah.
And I mean, as a society, maybe we are becoming more polarized in some areas where
Mm-hmm.
it's in my home group, I see it, right? People aren't behaving a certain way. So are we going to ban them? So easy to do in a Zoom meeting. Click,
Mm-hmm.
they're gone,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where in a face-to-face meeting, you'd have to have a talk with them, say what's going
Mm-hmm.
on for you, like
Mm-hmm.
it'd be a more involved thing. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, the power is in our mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
only a
Wow.
keystroke away.
Mm-hmm.
And um, it seems harder and harder sometimes to hold space for people that completely uh, disagree with us on certain levels because somebody has to be right, and the truth is nobody has to be right, and probably none of us are completely right.
Right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely had an evolution in that since COVID, since 2020, since we all started doing Zoom as a result of not being able to see each other face to face. And I remember like I would get into these disagreements with like some members of my home group about like, there were like some pretty gnarly like like white supremacist type people and stuff who would like, come in and because of social media, you would be aware, I would be aware of like kind of who more about who this person is than maybe like the meetings of yesteryear. And then that would kind of like put me in a tizzy about like, well, what is our responsibility to each other to kind of like exclude certain people and opinions and whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
certainly the opinions, as stated in the rules, for conduct, in the meetings themselves, I mean, ought to be honored, right? And every meeting's different and yada yada yada. But like I think I don't know, I want to be able to have a conversation with as many people as possible, and I want to exclude as few types of people and as types of thought, I suppose, from like my I guess that's what I'm trying to get at is that rightness and wrongness and taking into account what you guys just said about like, you know, is it even possible to be entirely wrong or entirely right? Um, I just feel like like we've said in previous shows, a yes and rather than a no but
Yeah. Yeah.
mentality towards our socializing, especially in
Mhm.
recovery spaces where you're really trying to keep people a part of the body as much as
Mhm.
possible,
Mhm.
to save their lives, I think is it's important.
Well, it's also important. I said earlier, we can be a fundamentalist in anything, and it's like if we understand that, and at least I do, I believe is that fundamentalism, and polarization is these are definitions of the bigger problems, and so the idea that those and I do think this is a judgment, but I think those of us who are more on the liberal side of that kind of tend to think of ourselves as not being a part of that, but we are. It's like if I'm honest about my thinking, it's like I have very, very sharp judgmental thoughts about people who believe, radically different things than I do. So it's like it doesn't mean I need to change what I'm thinking, but I need to realize I'm not actually I'm not healing I'm not closing the gulf there by just taking that position either. And I don't know the answer. I mean, because I don't think that means we have to reach out and have every conversation that is going to be difficult to have. But I do think there's a value in being able to have a relationship beyond that. You remember Patrick when I was talking about my friend. It's been a few years now. My friend Tom from Dallas, that was one of my closest friends, he died of pancreatic cancer, and I mean, politically we could not have been more polar opposite. This guy, this guy, I mean, it's like I mean, he at one point told me, he believed that Barack Obama was a socialist and wanted to get his money and give it to the people who had less money. And what I suggested to him was, why don't you go ahead and start by giving me some of your money now? Because I I said, because you have a lot of money, I don't, and so why don't you go ahead and hand it over? But
Boy, do I wish Tom was telling the truth there.
right.
That's the Obama
we
I want to see. Yeah.
yeah. Well, but basically, we let that go. We had a third friend who basically played a referee and kept and called us on it when we would get into it and just say, you guys stop it, you know. And all I can say is, I mean, we didn't accomplish anything, peace on earth or anything. But I can say that all these years later, I miss him as deeply as much as I miss anybody on this planet, and I loved him dearly. Um, and I don't have any. I'm not any closer to agreeing with any goddamn thing he thought politically at this point. I would still, in my opinion, if I'm being arrogant, if I let my arrogant self talk, I'm laughing and basically judging what he's saying. It's like, but I'm not, but I loved him.
Yeah.
That's
I
beautiful.
love him. Yeah, in the
The
present.
the
Yeah.
challenge for me is to see people with positive regard and to be curious. Uh,
Yeah.
but I somehow they become so simple and I'm so complicated. When they differ from me, right? And
That's right. Oh God. Yeah.
right now I just finished and posted a podcast and blog about sort of a year-end look at what's going on in the AA community. And
Mhm.
right now, there's a big, heated, heartfelt debate over the primary literature. Should it be preserved exactly as is, like, a Shakespearean word for
Mhm.
wordness, or
Mhm.
should it be replaced with a contemporary, current culture, current science approach to addiction and recovery? And people who feel that we have to preserve it or AA will perish love AA just as much as the people who say we have to change it. We're going to become extinct if we leave it the same.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
love AA and want it to continue forever. We
Mhm.
just don't all agree on uh, the, the the right path forward. And one of you two said what the real answer is. Why is it one or the other? Why not do both? Have the legacy big book and the modern day version of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know why each group can't pick the book they want. Like, there is no format for an AA meeting that it has to read a certain thing or it's not allowed to read a certain thing. Nothing's forbidden, nothing's sacred. Why can't we just try a number of new things? And again, it's that, well, what if we tried something new and it didn't work? What if it worked more poorly than the existing thing? Well, then do it
Let
again.
it go. Yeah, change a little, do a little bit, or let it go. It doesn't matter. It's like just whatever you do, just because I mean, again, that's what the definition of addiction. Continue to do the same thing, expecting better results. It's like you know you know. You see, you keep coming back to curiosity, Joe, and that's it, man. I think my thinking is curiosity is first of all, we'll go back to the other word I used, which is curiosity is the primary ingredient in respect. It's like curiosity basically is the antidote to assumption. It's and judgment. It's like, let's get curious. How, and what you said is, and this we could do this with politics too. It's like, do I love my country better more than somebody who has an opposite view of me? I mean, it's like, no, probably not. That's not what the problem is. That's not what the issue is. The issue is we can't stay in conversation long enough to accomplish anything together because we judge each other.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and rightness or wrongness, I guess. Taking each with a grain of sand or a grain of salt. Grain of salt, right? That's the expression.
Yeah. You can take it with a grain of sand. That's not wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
But a person could be right.
We're wrong.
Yeah.
It's okay to be wrong.
Oh, thanks so much,
we
guys.
love you for who you are.
Because you're enough.
Yeah. But like, I guess maybe what we're getting at is that like, being right does not need to be a prerequisite for us to have these connections with people. And I also, we're not saying to be allergic to having opinions, right? It's like you can have your opinions and you can try to pursue, a truth, that makes sense to you. But it need not, I suppose, kind of exclude, I don't know, other ideas, other like kind of contrasting opinions.
Well, learn from our own experience of growth too, because when you said that, what I realized, one of the things that's different about me now than when I was in my more, fundamentalist position is like it's like, if I tell you things I believe right now, I really believe those things. But if you say, are you certain that you're going to believe the same things 2 years or 5 years from now? I would say no. I may have very different ideas and belief systems by then because I'm constantly changing.
Welcome, Alan. Great to see you.
Well, let me just update you in terms of what's going on right now. So
please.
This is the final day of the 3-day trauma intensive workshop I'm doing with the somatic therapist. And I am blown away at the work we've done these last 2.5 days. I mean, literally, it's such a deep level. I mean, one guy shared a trauma that I was the only other person he ever talked to about what happened in his life. And after he talked about it and the piece of work he did in this group, man, he looks like a different guy. I mean, transformation. So I'm sitting here with so much excitement about what's right now, also appreciating. I mean, it's, what I'm doing the workshop here at the house. You guys saw, you two guys saw the apartment I have. Joe's going to get Joe down for this next trauma workshop on a scholarship.
Yes, please.
Finally straighten Joe out. I'm going to finally have a chance. Joe's going, yes, please. Somebody come along and do it.
I'm ready.
I'm ready too. I'm waiting for this to happen. But it's also cool. I realize how much my mother, in some obviously negative ways, impact my life, but in a positive way. She used to open up her house to everybody. And she used to love having people in the house and cooking for people and making them comfortable and hosting them. And I've got 12 people wandering around my home, and it feels wonderful.
Mm.
It just feels like I've got extended family here now. And I hadn't realized how, because, you know, when I was married to Jess, my ex was not comfortable with that stuff. She was very, very socially uncomfortable. And so I kind of muted that part of me to try to cooperate with where she was at. But I realized is that I love that, man. I just love it. Last night we had 12 people sitting around the dinner table. And it was great, man. It was just great. So
Right.
I'm really having a very, very powerful experience, both at the professional level in terms of the work I've done and how I've been able to create some incredible experiences for people, as well as to learn from this somatic therapist. She's very good.
Can you tell us like the kind of macro of how the emotional sobriety and the somatic therapy kind of intersect?
Well, it's about freedom, right? It's all about personal freedom and establishing some personal freedom. So one of the cool things that she's been doing is interspersed, like we start out the sessions, which with she comes in with some somatic work, right? It sounds like that's going to be all heavy, does it? But it's not. Like, I'll give you an example of a game she got everybody to play. So you guys are familiar with rock, paper, scissors, right?
Yeah.
So you go up to someone in a group and you go rock, paper, scissors. If you win, they have to go behind you and start to form a chain, right? Like cha-cha line, right? Go up to the next person, and if they win, then you have to become part of their cha-cha line. So at the end, there's two groups, right? Left, right? One person with about 4 people on it, the other person with about 5 people on it, or 6 people. They do the thing, and so whoever wins now has this big long line of 12 people. And then they cha-cha through the whole room together and dance. Here you see these adults ranging from 40-ish, late 30s to 70 years old, laughing their heads off and being kids. In the midst of an hour earlier, an hour later, they're sitting there crying their eyes out or screaming at someone that abused them and dealing with it. So what I've loved about what she's done, she's also done some great work on a somatic level with people in terms of getting their body more engaged. But what she's done is brought this balance between going into this heavy space and still not in a spiritually bypass way, going into this other side of our human experience of enjoying each other and laughing and being able to enjoy each other's connection. So this is friggin' delightful. I mean, it's been so rewarding to me, and it's really, I think I've needed it as much as all the participants in the group has needed this thing. It's really,
you bet. It's therapeutic all around. Yep.
it is real. And look at the girls. For the girls, you know, Jess's energy was much more socially inhibited, and they have a little of that. Well, they have warmed up to this group. I mean, Maddie took her bird up and showed everybody the bird yesterday, invited everybody. We did sparklers last night out on the grass. I mean, she was in the kitchen helping this one person who came over to cook for us for 2 nights, Teresa, cutting up everything and helping prepare and serve. And Cece was serving people on a roller skates.
Oh, beautiful.
Amazing.
Perfect. That's perfect.
I mean, so it's really wonderful to see the whole family, right? See the girls just get involved in life and to be able to appreciate relationships and what they mean. So this has really been, you're right, Tom, therapeutic all around for the whole family.
That's good.
Including Rocky, Tom. Rocky enjoys having people around. You know, he gets a lot of pets from a lot of different folks.
Oh, I bet. Yes.
I was going to ask about Rocky recently. I was thinking about him. He's kind of like, I don't know if you ever saw the Never-Ending Story, where there's that big, like, furry dragon that flies people around. And anyway, he kind of reminds me of that because he's so big and he's got that shaggy white fur. And yeah, he's a very good boy, that Rocky.
Is the never-ending story over?
Never.
Oh, the first night, so we decided we'd have dinners together, right? The first night, we all made pizzas.
Oh, wow.
We made our own
Amazing.
pizzas. So everybody got a tray and a cauliflower pizza crust, and everybody made their own pizzas.
Cool.
Amazing.
Really cool.
Gluten free.
You just got to see the individuality of everybody getting expressed, right? Some people threw the stuff on there that I'd never throw on a pizza, and South African guy, right? But so we've got people here from South Africa, from Canada, from California. Those are the weirdest folks, the California.
Yeah.
Be included. Anyway,
You know,
so I'm just bringing a lot of excitement and joy in terms of what's going on right now.
you know what comes up for me, Alan, is because I've thought about this in the context of my own struggles, but like I have a lot of downtime, and by downtime I mean just very, I guess, pessimist on some level, or just very kind of like the space in between the notes where I'm just sitting with my grief over losses. And in my case, it's physical, it's infirmity, and it's the loss of a relationship and different things. And I know that you had some downtime as well this year, but God, this like experience you're having right now with all the people and like, and not just having all those people around, but like the things that you're engaged with are just so like upbeat and kind of like therapeutic, like you said. It just reminds me in the context of my own stuff that like you got to hold out because those very engaged, those very kind of like socialized experiences, they may seem far away, but they're on the horizon. But you need to kind of like be willing to go through a little bit of trench warfare to get there, right? That I mean, I don't know. Does that ever occur to you? It's during really like positive times like this.
Yes, very much so.
It's all one thing. It's a connected thing. It's like, and one of the things it's hard to do is, but important to do is remember that going forward, so that the purpose, the point of life is not always the highs. It's like that, and so that the next time I'm in those down places, or those difficult places, or those even boring places, it's like I know that it's all part of the same system, it's my life, and my job is to be present in whatever it is right now.
Just show up. You don't have to
just
come
show
with the
up, Joe.
answers.
That's right.
Show up,
Just
be curious.
Man, whenever I can just show up for something without having to think about it too much, God, that helps me so much. Like, because my thinking about things, I don't know, I tend to get led into some pretty sticky areas, and
Well,
yeah.
that's a good place to tell you. That's a great example that everybody here can agree with me. I bet you is as far as just showing up. If you just show up, you're enough. You know. And by the way, if you need and maybe I'm being too positive about myself here, but if you need a model for just showing up as opposed to worrying about things too much or preparing too much, in all the things that we do together, I never prepare shit. I never do. It's like I don't know how to prepare. It's like I gave up on doing that a long time ago. I learn things, I explore things in my time and do that, and then and if I tried to prepare something, I never get to it. It's like I just show up, and I see myself as somebody who can bounce off of any one of you guys and be a part, be a part of the conversation, and it's like. That's to me, that's just me showing up, believing that I'm enough the way I am. So I think you're that way too, Patrick.
Well, I talked to somebody that you work with, Tom, recently, and they had such glowing things to say about like, your intuitive capacity and kind of like the ways in which you'd help them to get through some struggles. So whatever you're doing, it seems to be working for you or working for other people too.
Just showing up.
Yeah.
Being the best version of myself I can be, and and keep learning.
And Alan, just to bring you up to speed, so in the context of emotional sobriety, we were discussing rightness and wrongness and kind of like the desire or the kind of like compulsion to feel that we're right about something, or at least not wrong about it, and kind of like how emotional sobriety, what we can bring of emotional sobriety to that, to kind of like have a more healthy relationship with like our, the very real thing that like we're gonna be wrong most of the time. And what does that say about us, right?
Well, let me say a few things about it because I do have to go back up to the workshop in about 10 minutes or so. So, this is what I'm coming to in my life with all of this stuff. Clearly, there is right and wrong in my mind, right? So, for example, one of the people in the workshop had an incredibly abusive mother. And it was so hard for her to say that what her mother did to her was wrong because she felt like she'd be disloyal to claim that her mother was wrong. And when, we were able to differentiate a little bit about that, you're saying that your mother's mothering was wrong, but we're not saying that your mother was a bad person. It's just that what she did to you was wrong. Is people can do wrong things and still be okay people. In fact, no one amongst us can claim that we haven't done something wrong and hurtful and been selfish at some point in our life and been inconsiderate or whatever. Every one of us have done things like that. But the bottom line is that it's so, first of all, important to differentiate the person from their behavior and for us to be able to differentiate ourselves from our behavior, right? I mean, that becomes a very important thing. Another thing, though, is it's also important to be able to suspend right and wrong and to move to a place. Rumi has this great little poem that goes, there's a field out there somewhere that's beyond right and wrong. Let's meet there. Let's meet there.
Is there a map?
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
the idea that
that's the Holy Grail. If you want to talk
Yeah.
about what is the Holy Grail, baby,
That's
let's
right.
go on a journey to find that Holy Grail, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to integrate that in my life. So what I'm thinking is that it's important to hold both of those realities.
Yeah.
What I'm going through, I think that not necessarily, just not wanting to be married to me anymore is wrong. But I think the way she went about it was really wrong and has done a lot of damage in this family. So I can still see that. I can still say that, look, you're not a bad person, but this was really damaging to our family and stuff, and will be for a long, long time, and Tom, that in terms of not only what divorce does, but what betrayal does in a family, man. The reverberation is incredible.
Yep.
So, it's being able to hold that space, sometimes it's easier than said than done. When I get protective of the girls, man, I want to make her really wrong. I mean, trust me, man, I get so protective of Cece and Maddie in this whole thing. And I'm sure that's also me protecting my little boy that was so hurt at 11 years old. I'm not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But look, it's a very important conversation because for a long time I used to get a lot of self-esteem in being right. And somehow that's the only way I could feel good about myself. And it was a real piss poor way of feeling good because I'm right, somebody else has got to be wrong. And that's not who I want to be anymore.
Well, that's good. That fits right into what we were discussing and what we were saying about that too, is the idea that that's not the source of self-esteem, being right. It's not find better sources of self-esteem, like learning, growing.
Right. And that's what's so miraculous to me or inspiring about, the context that you emerge from, Alan. It's the Marines and it's competitive sports is seasoned in there too. And a lot of like sharp, pointy edges in those, but like you don't have that binary understanding of life.
And that place isn't a place, it's a state of mind, right?
Right.
beyond right and wrong.
It's inside us always. It's about yeah. It's like that's when we say that something's not, the recovery is not a destination or peace is not a destination. It's like it just runs down the center of us, and we're working on living as close to that center as we possibly can, and we're human beings, so it's not ever going to be perfect.
I was going to ask today when the workshop was, because I thought it was double digit numbers, the dates.
Yeah, it's not. So I'll let you know when the next one is. And, the other thing I want to throw out to all of you guys, now that, my life is starting to settle down, we were talking about doing this emotional sobriety kind of weekend at
Labor Day thing.
Yeah, Labor Day thing. And I'd like to reintroduce that because now I'm going to have this beautiful pool in the backyard where people would be able to swim and enjoy, even on a hot day, go cool off and stuff like that. And there'll be a little place for us to play some music on, Joe, a stage that we can put that'll have some possibilities for us to set up a band and stuff like that and enjoy that. And so let's work on a date and start to figure out how we want to do it. There's 3 acres of land behind my house, and there's plenty of room for people to come and camp. And so
amazing.
I can get a permit. I found out how to do that last year when we were talking about it. I don't think it'll be a big thing because the great thing about my permit is there won't be any alcohol involved.
Yeah, that's right. No liquor license.
No need to discuss that. So, and there's plenty on my property for a lot of people to park. So we can figure all that out too. So I'm going to sign off, you guys. I love you all, Joe. Thanks for joining us today. And I look forward to the next time. And let's keep rocking and rolling, guys.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to make sure I include, Joe, in the show notes, your latest podcast, because that sounds like it dovetails perfectly with a lot of what we discussed here today.
Yeah, it's, like if we can't, like step one, what is that other than admitting we're wrong about things, right?
That's right.
And it all begins with that, and it's a necessary skill at every step of the journey of life, right?
And Tom, I wanted to throw it out. You've got some projects in the mix, right? And maybe there's some, I think you may have released some writing recently that maybe we can kind of like remind people of for the holiday in case, they're wanting to bone up on their being a good personhood.
This is promotionally, this is a bad thing to have to say, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, if
I have been putting some stuff out there because it's the holidays, and I have two gift books that are I think are good gift books. One's called What Love Is, and the other one's called The Greater Possibilities. I wrote them some time ago, but I have been putting that information out as I do during the holidays because they make good gifts. I love being somebody's gift under the tree.
Both books still have that new car smell.
Yes, and they fall into the category of books I've written for people who don't read books. So there's one page at a time kind of thing. I had a person who contacted me and pointed out that I write bathroom books, and I think I did put a post out there about that, and just saying that I thought maybe I should be offended by that, but the truth is. What she said was she had bought What Love Is for her husband I think last Christmas, and she said he looked at it and read a couple of things and put it back on the coffee table, and that was it. And she said then she put it in the bathroom, and the next thing that she knows that he's actually making comments about the book. And even mentioning certain page numbers and stuff. So I decided, well, I'm just going to promote these things as bathroom books. And what better way to get a man to read a book than to put it in the bathroom?
Well, right? That's what I was going to say is that there's actually few places of reading more privileged than the bathroom. So if your book makes it in there, then you're ahead of the curve.
Well, yeah. She said the other book is called The Greater Possibilities, and she ended her last note with me saying, "This year I'm going to get the greater possibilities for my other bathroom."
Yeah. And I just want to say, it's becoming more and more frequently now, which like I'm over the moon about, but like I will get emails and messages from listeners from different countries, you know, from different places, people I've never met before, people I was not aware had been listening to what we do week to week. And it really like it's the last thing I expected for some reason. I don't know why, because we've been doing this a little while, so our
Yeah.
reach will expand. But like it's just so nice from hearing from you guys that the show is meaningful to you and that you're getting
Yeah.
something out of it. And well, I will endeavor to just keep making things